Amelia stood alone in the dimly lit attic, dust motes swirling in the shafts of evening light that pierced through the cracked window panes. The old manor creaked with the weight of memories and secrets long buried. She had always been fascinated by her Aunt Evelyn's house, a labyrinth of rooms filled with antiques and relics from a life shrouded in mystery. Now, after her aunt's passing, it all belonged to her, a bittersweet inheritance. As she rummaged through a chest of worn velvet and moth-eaten lace, her fingers brushed against something solid yet supple. Pulling it out, she discovered a leather-bound diary, its cover embossed with strange symbols that seemed to shift when not directly observed. An inexplicable chill ran down her spine. Intrigued, she opened it to the first page. In elegant script, it read, "To the seeker of truths, know that knowledge bears its own burden." Amelia had always felt like an outsider. With her quiet demeanor and penchant for solitude, she often found solace in books and the comfort of her own thoughts. Aunt Evelyn had been the only family member who seemed to understand her, albeit distantly. The townspeople whispered about Evelyn, calling her a recluse, a witch, a woman tangled in dark arts. Amelia never believed the rumors, attributing them to the superstitions of a small, insular community. Yet, as she delved deeper into the diary, she began to question everything she thought she knew. The entries were vivid, almost alive, detailing the lives of people in the village, people Amelia recognized. Friends, neighbors, even fleeting acquaintances were written about with intimate knowledge. But beneath the surface of mundane details lay an undercurrent of something sinister. The first unsettling event occurred after she read about Mr. Thompson, the jovial baker who always slipped her an extra pastry. The diary entry painted a picture of his generous spirit but ended with a cryptic line, "The sweetness he gives shall be his undoing." The next day, news spread that Mr. Thompson had disappeared overnight, his bakery left open, bread still warm in the ovens. The village buzzed with speculation. A kidnapping, a sudden departure, but no one had answers. Amelia's stomach knotted with guilt and confusion. Could it be a coincidence? She dismissed the thought, attributing it to grief-induced paranoia. Yet, a seed of dread had been planted. Compelled by a mix of fear and curiosity, she continued to read. Each entry seemed to beckon her deeper, unraveling the facade of the villagers' lives. There was Mrs. Collins, the schoolteacher who was stern but fair. Her entry ended ominously. Knowledge is a flame that can burn as well as illuminate. Shortly after, Mrs. Collins vanished without a word, her chalkboard left mid-sentence. Panic spread through the village like wildfire. Amelia grappled with her conscience. The rational part of her denied any connection, but the patterns were undeniable. Each person she read about in the diary disappeared shortly after. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her chest, making it hard to breathe. Sleepless nights became her new normal. Shadows seemed to dance just beyond her vision, and the house groaned with a life of its own. She tried to avoid the diary, but an unseen force drew her back. She decided to test her theory, flipping ahead to an entry about Lucas, the kind-hearted gardener who tended to the manor's overgrown grounds. She read it hesitantly, heart pounding. The entry was melancholy, hinting at secrets buried beneath the soil. The following day, Lucas was nowhere to be found, his tools dropped hastily beside a half-pruned rosebush. Amelia's horror grew as she realized the diary wasn't just predicting these events, it was causing them. Determination surged within her. She had to stop this. Gathering the diary, she marched to the fireplace, igniting the logs until flames roared hungrily. With a resolute breath, she tossed the diary into the fire. For a moment, it seemed to work. The flames engulfed the book, tongues of orange and red licking at the cursed pages. Relief washed over her, but it was short-lived. The fire suddenly sputtered, the flames turning an unnatural shade of blue before extinguishing completely. The diary lay atop the charred logs, unscathed. A cold wind swept through the room, despite all the windows being closed. Whispers filled the air, unintelligible yet filled with malice. Terrified, Amelia sought help from Father Matthew, the village priest. She recounted her tale, half expecting him to think her mad. Instead, his face grew pale. "Your aunt dabbled in forces beyond our understanding," he confessed. "There were rumors she possessed the Book of Whispers, a relic said to blur the lines between thought and reality. He warned her that destroying such an object was not a simple task. It was bound to the reader, feeding off attention and fear. The more you interact with it, the stronger it becomes," he cautioned. Desperate, Amelia isolated herself in the manor, determined to ignore the diary. But it appeared everywhere. In her bedroom, on the kitchen table, even atop her pillow when she awoke from restless sleep. Each time, it was open to a new entry, the ink appearing fresh. One night, she dreamt of Aunt Evelyn, standing at the edge of a dark forest. "You must finish what I could not," her aunt whispered. "It craves stories, deny it, and it will wither." Amelia awoke with a start. The diary opened beside her, blank pages fluttering as if caught in a breeze. Summoning all her willpower, she decided to write one final entry. Taking up a quill, she inscribed her own story into the diary, detailing her journey and the terror it had wrought. As she wrote, the house trembled, the walls groaning under an invisible force. The air grew thick, making each breath a struggle. She penned the final line, "And with this, the chain is broken, the stories end here." The diary snapped shut, a piercing scream echoing through the manor before a profound silence settled. When morning light filtered through the windows, the oppressive atmosphere had lifted. The diary was gone, leaving only a faint outline of dust where it had lain. Slowly, the villagers who had disappeared began to return, each disoriented but unharmed. They had no recollection of where they had been or what had happened. Life in the village resumed, but Amelia knew she would never be the same. She had confronted darkness and emerged with scars unseen but deeply felt. In the months that followed, she became more involved in the community, mending the isolation she had long felt. Yet, every now and then, she would catch a glimpse of a familiar symbol etched faintly on a stone, or woven into the fabric of a passer-by's scarf. It served as a reminder that some doors, once opened, are never truly closed. Though the diary was gone, its legacy lingered. Amelia learned to live with the uncertainty, finding strength in her own resilience. She visited Aunt Evelyn's grave, leaving a single white rose. "I understand now," she whispered. "Some truths are not meant to be known."